What is going on, Jaguars fans? Welcome back into the Fan Cave, man. Right as we're approaching into week 3 of the preseason, everyone around the NFL is starting to prepare for one of the greatest things the NFL and football in general has to offer: fantasy football. Man, I love it every year. It keeps me invested in games that I have no interest in at all besides my fantasy players in them. So it's a great opportunity. And the Jaguars have a lot of good players that you should be looking for at different levels of your upcoming draft. Or maybe you've already drafted. Maybe you should be looking for these players on your waiver wire. Man, there are going to be 3 different awesome players that I think you should be looking for. So stay tuned. Be sure to watch the entire video because there's a lot of info that you're going to want to hear. All right, Jaguars fans, starting off this list is a player with an average draft position of 136 across the major fantasy platforms. This is a player that he averaged 9 receiving yards over the 3 of the last 4 seasons in the NFL while he was with his prior team. This player is newly acquired free agent, wide receiver Marvin Jones, coming to us from Detroit, comes to Jacksonville. Like I said, he's had a bunch of production while he was in Detroit. He has a tendency to start off really slow, but after week 8, he averaged, 22.5 points in a PPR league per game. You know, that's incredibly productive for any wide receiver that is going to be playing in the National Football League. Once you reach that 20-plus range, you're talking about wide receiver 1 status on any team. And with an average draft position of 136 in a 10 to 12-man league, you're talking about bottom end of your draft where you can get some really good value out of any especially out of the wide receiver room. Get that depth, possibly get that first flex. If you're in a 2-flex league, this would be a great addition for you to have a stash, let him develop, see what he becomes. Because like I said, after week 8, averaging 22.5 PPR points per game, that is incredible. That is a lot of upside, and I definitely think you should be looking at Marvin Jones in the latter half of your drafts. All right, Jaguars fans, this next player is a player that had an ADP, an average draft position of 54 so far coming into the league. Now, with the injury to Travis Etienne, hopefully he gets rested up nice and quick, gets back to us in 2022 with that horrible Liz Frank injury. But James Robinson has an ADP of 54 right now. You know, if you were drafting the next coming days, absolutely, this is going to be a hell of a steal for you. Because James Robinson it's essentially going to be just like it was last year. He's going to be receiving the bulk of the touches. You know, Carlos Hyde might steal a couple of those, like 3 to 10, or like 5 to 8 maybe touches a game. Look for him to, just be kind of the relief back if James Robinson wants a break. But James Robinson is going to be receiving the bulk of the carries. And when you want to talk about somebody that had the bulk last year, he was able to rush for over 1,000 yards on, I believe, 14 games. And that was on the worst team in Jacksonville Jaguars history. You want to talk about how bad that team was? It was a team that had several different starting quarterbacks, and James Robinson was really the leader of that offense in production-wise, really. So with the addition of Trevor Lawrence, I expect that box is going to become less stacked. He's going to see less 7-man fronts. It's going to be a lot more open for James Robinson to hit the hole, and also just to be more productive than he was last year. Hopefully, like I said, Carlos Hyde can kind of lighten that load for James Robinson, so James doesn't deal with the injury problems that he had in 2020, and that he's able to play the full healthy season. And with him averaging over 17 points per game in a PPR league throughout the season, throughout all games played, I'll say that because he didn't play in week 16 or 17. So throughout his games played, over 17 points in a PPR league definitely bodes well for a running back that is getting looked at in late 4th round, mid 5th round currently in fantasy leagues. Obviously, with the injury to Travis Etienne, he's probably going to move up draft boards as the touch leader in Jacksonville. Probably going to move up into 2nd or 3rd round, potentially even a 1st round running back in Jacksonville. So be on the lookout if you're drafting soon. Definitely look at James Robinson in that 3rd to 4th round because he's going to be a heck of a steal. Now, let's roll right on to our 3rd player. Now, personally in my fantasy leagues every year, I like to take a flyer on a rookie quarterback. This is Now, obviously, I'm a Jaguar-centric channel, and I just kind of tip my hand. It is the quarterback out of Clemson University, Trevor Lawrence, the money man in Jacksonville, Mr. Number One overall pick. When you talk about Trevor Lawrence, you talk about someone that has incredible accuracy. You talk about someone that had a 5-to-1 touchdown to interception ratio. Excuse me. Oh man, that'd be miserable. But you talk about 5 touchdowns to 1 interception ratio during his time at Clemson, and that is excluding his rushing touchdowns. While he was at Clemson, had 18 rushing touchdowns. In 3 years there, 6 rushing touchdowns a year while he was at Clemson University. Hey, he's got sneaky wheels. We saw that in one of the playoff games while he was at Clemson, that he's got the jets. He can use them if necessary. We saw in New Orleans, he was able to rush for that first down. With an average draft position of 126, you can definitely look to snag him later in your drafts. Be that backup quarterback, maybe just a stash, see what happens with him. I was very, very hesitant on the rookie quarterbacks, even going back to like Patrick Mahomes, Lamar Jackson draft. But after seeing the production that they had, even as rookies, even with Justin Herbert, in a fantasy perspective, I definitely am going to start, looking at picking up a rookie quarterback just to kind of stash him on the roster. And that way, he's either potential trade bait, or even if I want to actually put him into the starting roster, that's absolutely an option as well. And I don't believe it's unreasonable to say that Trevor will throw for over 4,000 yards, 25 touchdowns, and going with I'll even shrink it to a 3-to-1, which is still incredible in the National Football League. If Trevor can go for like 24 and 8, that is still an incredible stat line for him. Throwing a touchdown or an interception every other game, I'll take that hands down, far and away. So those are the 3 Jaguars that I think you should be looking at in your fantasy football drafts to really add a lot of value in your upcoming drafts, or if you haven't drafted onto the waiver wire. Now, I'm a huge fan of independent defensive position leagues as well. So if you'd like me to do an IDP fantasy video as well, I would love to do that. There's a lot of great IDP players that the Jaguars offer as well. So if you did enjoy the video, I'd love for you to leave a like. If you're interested in that IDP video, go ahead and drop a comment down below. I will gladly make one for you all. And hey, if you have a player that's on this team that you think I left out, I'd love to hear your comment as well down in the comment section below. I love interacting with all of you. And be sure to check out the live streams that I'm starting to do weekly for a preview of the game as well as a breakdown. And with all that being said, stay safe and go Jaguars.